Hello SLAPAFISH community, welcome back to another World Tanks Constant video. So in this video, I'm going to be going through every single Halloween tank that you can get from the Earn-Up to see which one is the best. So I'm going to be ranking all 11 of them by win ratio. So let's just get into it. Also, if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing because it's free and helps out the channel a ton. So number 11 is the Boghor at 49.22%. So this tank is a tier 8 American heavy tank that is a preferential tank, which means it only meets up to tier 9, that has strong frontal armor, 229 on its turret, and 191 on its hull. Now, this gun actually got recently buffed. Its rate of fire recently got buffed. Now it does 1,616 damage. This tank's all about the preferential matchmaking and the armor at the front of this tank. You get to tanks get to the side or rear, the armor starts to fall apart. Shoot at the front and also use your 10 degrees of gun depression with the 320 alpha. Now, let's move on to number 10, which is the Holland Hound, surprise, surprise, which has a 49.32%, which is a German tier 8 light tank. Now, this light tank it's all about the gun, really. Its mobility is pretty good at 72.4 forward and 24 reverse. It also has a power to weight ratio of 28.94, so pretty good. Silver rate is 40% and earn rate is 20%. Also, I forgot to say that the Boghor has one of the highest earn rates in the entire game at 67%. Also, the Holland Hound has a 50% crew boost. Now, the gun of the Holland Hound is actually pretty good. 240 damage on standard and premium with 182 and 250 of penetration, but it's got half rounds on its third round with 102 millimeters of penetration with 320 damage. It has a DPM of 2,251. Now let's move on to the number 9 spot, which is the Dragon at a 49.57%. This is a tier 7 Chinese light tank. Now this light tank is quite slow. It has a forward speed of 60, reverse speed of 23, with a decent power to weight ratio of 20.48. View range is 390, and it has a 180 alpha gun, so it does 180 damage per shot. It actually has a pretty decent DPM of 1,964. So you have a 40% silver rate, earn rate, and a 25% XP rate. Number 8 is the Creature at a 49.85% win ratio. So this is a tier 7 German tank destroyer that has a 30% silver rate and a 20% XP rate, which the tank is all about the gun. It does insane amounts of damage. It's a derp gun, pretty much. It's a Storm Tiger. It's a Storm Tiger with a turret. So yeah, it does 660 damage per shot with its high explosive round, which is its standard round, with 85 millimeters of penetration. Its second round is heat at 180 millimeters of penetration. 180 millimeters of penetration, 580 damage. Number 7 is another German tank, the Revenant, at a 49.99% win ratio. So this tank is a pretty... It snipes. It's all about sniping. Sniping. All about the gun with its 0.3 accuracy, 2.3 aim time, and its DPM of 1,956 with 150 damage per shot, with the amazing penetration that this tank gets at 198 on standard and 244 on its premium. And it has terrible view range at 360. So the Silver rate is 56%, which is pretty high for a tier 7, and a 20% XP rate. Number 6 is the Lichen at a 50.01%. Now this tier 7 American light tank is a 6-round autoloader light tank that does 150 damage per shot, and it has 6 shots per clip, and it can clip out a lot of stuff. It also has a damage per minute of 1,800. It has special matchmaking, where it will never be top tier. Yes, the Lichen will never be top tier, but it still retains the information it had, its stats it had before the major light tank update. So yeah. So this tank gets a 20% silver rate and a 25% XP rate. Also, it has an amazing view range at 400, and this tank's just an all-around great tank. If you like light tanks with autoloaders and good view range, but somewhat poor mobility, get the Lichen. Also, I forgot to mention the mobility is 64.4 forward, 23 reverse, with a power to weight ratio of 24.76. Number 5 is the Wraith at a 50.06 win ratio. Now this tank is a German tier 8 medium tank that has quite a bit of armor. It has armor, but it's more of a snipey medium tank with a gun that does 280 damage per shot, with a penetration at 212 on its standard, 259 on its premium, with an aim time of 2.3 and an accuracy of 0.34, but it also has 10 degrees of gun depression. Now, also, the silver boost of this tank is 50% with an XP boost of 15%. It also has decent view range at 380 meters. Now, let's move on to number 4, which is the other preferential matchmaking tank in this list, the Gornage, which is at a 51.46% win ratio. Now this is a tier 8 Soviet heavy tank that has preferential matchmaking, where it does not meet tier 10s. It has terrible view range at 350, but the Gornage is all about the armor and the ramming potential, because this tank is heavy. It weighs about 100 tons, I believe, and it has a decent top speed of considering how slow it is, at 40 kilometers forward and 14 reverse, with a terrible horsepower to weight ratio at 11.98. Now the turret armor at the front of the Gornage is 240 at the front. The whole armor is 180 at the front, and the side armor is 150, and the back armor is 90 millimeters. This tank is armored to the teeth. It's armored very much. Also, it has a pretty decent gun. Has a great DPM of 2,196. And the reason this tank is preferential is it has terrible penetration at 175 on its standard, 219 on its premium, and does 300 damage per shot. So the Gornage has a 50% silver rate, earn rate, and a 15% XP rate. Now let's move on to the number 3 spot, which is the Belafron Centurion Mark V. Now this tank has a 52.53% win ratio. This is a Centurion, and it's a tier 8 British medium tank. It has great mobility at 50 forward and 20 reverse for a medium tank. Also at 18.22 horsepower per time. It also has a pretty good armor gun at 230 damage per shot, with a penetration of 226 on its standard and 258 on its premium, and 10 degrees of gun depression, which you can use with the great armor that this tank actually gets. It gets a shield, like a helmet, over the top of the turret, which makes the armor even more incredibly thick. When the gun mantle is 254 millimeters of thickness, and the upper hull plate is 120 millimeters of armor. You use your 10 degrees of gun depression, and there's pretty much nothing that could pin you in the entire game. Number 2 is another British medium tank, the Inferno, which has a 52.78% win ratio. This tank is all about the gun that does 440 damage per shot, which has the highest damage per shot of any medium tank at tier 8. But also has 10 degrees of gun depression, and because it has the bull, is that a bull? The lion at the front, this tank can go hold down and just absorb shots, just like the Belafront. And maybe even has better armor than the Belafront. Now, this tank has 10 degrees of gun depression, which makes going hold down even better. The mobility is fantastic. It goes 50 forward, 20 reverse with a power to weight ratio of 15.76. Now the gun accuracy does suck at 0.42 with an aim time of 2.9. Now its crew boost, XP boost is a 15% and silver rate is a 30%. Now, we're going to move on to number 1. The tank, the hull wing tank with the highest win ratio is the Kaiju. Now, the Kaiju has a 52.89% win ratio. This was number 1 in last year's VO, and it's still number 1 in this year's VO. So, the Kaiju is all about the armor. This is a tier 6 Japanese heavy tank. It has 150 millimeters of armor on the front of the tank, 105 on the rear, and 70 on its side. But it also has a multi-weapon, multi-turret system, which it has the main gun plus 2 different turrets, 2 little turrets, including the armor. So even the main gun's actually really good at 300 damage per shot, with a penetration of 175 on its standard and 201 on its premium. Its mobility is decent. It's actually just slow. 29.4 forward and 10 reverse, with a power to weight ratio of terrible of 8.52. Now the silver rate is 30%, XP rate is 30% also. That's it for this video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I'll just run SLAPAFISH because war is not. And peace out. See ya.